Hello and welcome to TVB News. The president of the Chinese University of Hong Kong has resigned. Rocky Tuan is stepping down from his position just days after the start of his second term as head of the university. He will work there until January next year. Some CUHK alumni said they felt saddened by Tuan's departure, while others noted his style of leadership did not meet expectations. Timothy Lee tells us more.
A surprise announcement of resignation from Chinese University President Rocky Tuan today. The university said its council received Tuan's resignation letter yesterday and that he will remain president until the beginning of next year. The university body quoted Tuan as saying he felt honored to have served the university since 2018 and for being able to contribute towards the development of CUHK. Tuan further mentioned it is the right moment for a change in leadership, following the amendment of the Chinese University of Hong Kong Ordinance and implementation of a new style of governance. Tuan stressed Hong Kong is his place of birth and home, and that it is a privilege to serve as president of the university. CUHK thanked Tuan for 6 years of leadership and service. Under Tuan's presidency, the university founded the School of Medicine in Shenzhen as well as the School of Music. CUHK also rose to new heights in global university rankings. This CUHK student said he is worried about the new leadership, adding a new president could bring about different administrative policies. Some CUHK alumni said they felt saddened by Tuan's departure. CUHK honorary fellow Anders Lam said he believes Tuan's resignation is related to the recent dismissal of Vice President Eric Ng by the University Council just weeks ago. This as the lawmakers said Tuan's leadership failed to meet expectations since the 2019 protests.
What I have observed in the past years, in fact, is the accountability of the Chinese university top management towards the public expectation. I personally hold the view that they may not have handled the relationship with the public very well. This is not only talking about the incident in 2019. In fact, actually, it's the incident thereafter. And I think the change of personnel in the Chinese university may provide an opportunity for the university to have a new start.
Tuan spent much of his academic career as a bioengineer in the United States before his tenure as CUHK president. He was criticized as some people believe he supported student protesters during the 2019 anti-government protests. The CUHK president also failed to appear at the university's graduation ceremony in November last year, citing health reasons. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee said today the government will review the public sector medical service system. Sources say that could mean increases in hospital fees and medication charges. As for the accident and emergency service charges at public hospitals, the fees could become higher or lower, depending on how serious the patient's condition is. Lee's comment came after Financial Secretary Paul Chan said on Sunday that a review of public service fees may be needed. Mimo Singhai reports.
The waiting time at some accident and emergency departments in public hospitals this afternoon was over 8 hours. The triage system at A&E departments divide patients into 5 categories based on their clinical condition: critical, emergency, urgent, semi-urgent, and non-urgent. Speaking ahead of today's Executive Council meeting, Chief Executive John Lee said authorities will review the public sector medical service system and the bills of A&E services will be targeted.
For the most urgent group that require immediate attention, they are Group 1. In terms of proper use of our A&E services, we should focus on those who are most urgently in need. In our triage system and according to past track record, we've seen that those who do not need A&E services have been using our services. So we should review our A&E services.
Sources say authorities are reviewing the entire public hospital fee system, including increasing A&E service fees to ensure medical resources are used appropriately and to boost government revenue. However, the sources say the increased A&E fees are aimed at semi-urgent and non-urgent patients. The current A&E fee is $180 per attendance, last adjusted in 2017. This woman thinks a price adjustment will add to the financial burden of grassroots family, but she thinks a slight increase is acceptable. Lawmaker David Tam believes adjusting the A&E costs for patients according to their condition can improve the system.
You must use other means to encourage people to go elsewhere if they are really not in urgent situation. And fee structure is certainly one. If someone who has, say, a runny nose condition for a long time, but it seems to be getting worse today, if that particular person goes to an A&E, he will be told that you have to pay a fairly bigger amount of consultation fee, but he has, of course, a choice to go elsewhere.
News 9, TVB News.
Today, there were more cancellations of Cathay Pacific flights. Chief Executive John Lee said the government is highly concerned about the operation of the city's flagship airline. Mimo Singai again.
Cathay Pacific Airways announced the cancellation of at least 21 flights today. This is the second day in a row that Hong Kong's flagship carrier has cancelled more than 20 flights. The Consumer Council says they have received at least 4 complaints regarding the flight cancellations. The Council Chief Executive Gilly Wong says some residents have paid for their accommodation and tickets overseas, fees that are not refundable.
Causing inconvenience.
Chief Executive John Lee stressed the government is concerned about the situation.
Of course, we are very concerned. Hong Kong, of course, has the mission of ensuring Hong Kong will be a strong aviation hub in this region. So the whole aviation capacity is important. And I understand that because of COVID, then there are challenges that we need to overcome. But I also want these challenges to be overcome very quickly and very effectively.
While Cathay Pacific had about 4,000 pilots before the pandemic, there are only roughly 2,500 now. The Hong Kong Aircrew Officers Association said the airline faces a severe shortage of pilots after some 500 were laid off during the pandemic.
What they're short of is captains and first officers, particularly on the passenger fleet. Pilots have to be trained to a standard, and that takes time.
In a reply email, Cathay Pacific apologized for the inconvenience and said relevant improvements have been made. Sources say the airline has asked pilots if they will cancel their applications for leave in February to support high-demand operations over the Lunar New Year holidays. News 9, TVB News.
Boeing's latest 737 MAX crisis deepened after United Airlines and Alaska Airlines said they had found loose parts on multiple grounded MAX 9 aircraft. This has raised new concerns among industry experts about how Boeing's best-selling jet family is manufactured. Daniel Rao tells us more.
U.S. regulators grounded 171 MAX 9 planes after a cabin panel blew off an Alaska Airlines-operated flight not long after taking off from a Portland, Oregon airport on Friday, forcing pilots to scramble to land the plane safely. The panel, which covers an optional exit door used by airlines that have denser seating configurations, was recovered on Sunday by a Portland schoolteacher who found it in his backyard. Alaska Airlines said late on Monday that initial reports from its technicians indicated some loose hardware was visible on some aircraft in the relevant area when it conducted checks of its fleet. It was waiting for final documentation from Boeing and the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration before formal inspections could begin. United, the other U.S. carrier that flies this Boeing model with the panel, said its preliminary checks found bolts that needed tightening on several panels. The disclosures heightened concerns about the production process of the MAX 9 jets that have been grounded. A source familiar with the matter said United has so far found close to 10 airplanes with loose bolts during its preliminary checks. There are still ongoing discussions between Boeing, the FAA, and the airlines on the precise inspection guidelines. Boeing said it was staying in close contact with MAX 9 operators and would help customers address any findings during inspections. The FAA said planes would remain grounded until operators complete enhanced inspections, which include both left and right cabin door exit plugs, door components, and fasteners. Dan Rowell, TV News.
French Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne has resigned following recent political turmoil over immigration. Analysts say this could help pave the way for President Emmanuel Macron to seek fresh momentum by appointing a new government in the coming days. The shakeup was widely seen as an attempt by the 46-year-old centrist Macron to head off a looming lame duck status. Macron's term is set to end in 2027, and he won't be able to run for president for a consecutive third term, in line with the French constitution. In her resignation letter, Borne suggested she resigned at Macron's request, citing the president's will to appoint a new prime minister. Borne's resignation followed the passage late last month of contentious immigration legislation backed by Macron aimed at strengthening the government's ability to deport some foreigners, among other measures. Welcome back. An Israeli airstrike in southern Lebanon that killed an elite Hezbollah commander has increased the risk of a wider regional war. The death of Wissam al-Tawil comes a week after a suspected Israeli strike killed a senior Hamas leader in Beirut. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Israel late on Monday after talks with Arab leaders hoping to ease tensions, with Israel's military saying the war will continue through 2024. Nazvi Karim has more details.
These developments that you mentioned and that we have been seeing pretty much all of last week and today just reemphasize our concern for the fact that this conflict has the potential to become a more widespread conflict. We continue to call for restraint and for all of the actors involved to do everything in their power to prevent the escalation of the situation in the region.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Tel Aviv on Monday with a ray of hope, telling Israeli leaders that the Arab leaders he spoke to during his Middle East visit want peace and security. He even broached the sensitive topic of normalization of relations with Israel's neighboring countries, including Saudi Arabia, which first wants a practical path to peace and an independent Palestinian state.
The future of the region needs to be one of integration, not division and not conflict. And fourth, for that to happen, we need to see the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. Now, no one I talk to thinks any of this will be easy. All recognize the hurdles, and no one thinks that anything will happen overnight. But we agreed to work together.
U.S. President Joe Biden, giving a speech at the Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, was interrupted by a protester calling for a ceasefire in Gaza.
Thank you. Look, folks, I understand their passion, and I've been quietly working with the Israeli government to get them to reduce and significantly get out of Gaza. I'm using all that I can to do that.
In Bangladesh, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has swept to power for a fourth consecutive term after Sunday's election was boycotted by opposition parties amid violent protests. The United States and Britain said the election was not free and fair, with accusations of intimidation and violence. China, Russia, and India are among the nations congratulating Hasina on her victory. The Awami League Party of Hasina, the daughter of Bangladesh founder Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, won 222 out of 299 parliamentary seats to extend her 15-year rule. Voter turnout was 41.8%, compared with 80% in 2018, in a campaign that saw opposition members jailed ahead of polls. The country is in an economic crisis with inflation at more than 9%. The opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party boycotted the polls. The 76-year-old Hasina played down the boycott and low turnout, saying it does not mean democracy was absent, adding she will focus on reviving the economy. The prosecution in the trial of former media tycoon Jimmy Lai today read out written evidence of an expert witness. This is the 8th day of the national security trial of Lai, who earlier pleaded not guilty to 1 count of sedition and 2 charges related to the national security law. Armed police and police dogs were on guard outside the West Kowloon Law Courts today. The prosecution read out the written evidence of expert witness Chow Kam-pui, a Hong Kong University associate professor from the Department of Computer Science. Police invited Chow to analyze and explain how different social media platforms work, including WhatsApp, Twitter, and YouTube. Part of the evidence in the case involved social media. The trial has been adjourned until Wednesday. The Chief Executive and Council has approved the upgrade of Caritas Institute of Higher Education to university status. The institution will be renamed St. Francis University. It's the 4th self-financing tertiary education institution to be granted the university title. Authorities took into account its achievements in business administration, social work, and information and communication technology. Upon attaining university status, Caritas will continue to be subject to periodical reviews by the Hong Kong Council for accreditation of academic and vocational qualifications. Caritas was established in 1985 as the Caritas Francis Hsu College and currently has around 3,000 full-time students. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.